Hello, my name is Larry Martin and I'm a solutions consultant with Beyond 20. Today I'm going to show you how to do something that's a little more complex than some of the other videos I've done recently, although it is fairly simple. And what we're going to be dealing with today is allowing you to restrict incidents based on either the owned by or those who have been explicitly given permission to look at an incident. In this case, I'm emulating having an HR department that may want to assign tickets to your IT group, but you want to assign it to specific higher level IT staff, those that have maybe had special clearances or are allowed to deal with special circumstances. I'm just using a random example here. But you may have cases where you have things like PCI, where you only have certain individuals who can look at records because there's PCI data there, where you want to limit the records exposure to certain individuals. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to throw a logical on our incident form, and in this case I just called it HR restricted. So I'll bring up an incident real quick. You'll notice I have this logical here that I can click. And if that logical is checked, then certain things happen in the system based on the security I've set up. Also, we have a tab down here called Available Tos. Now this tab is going to say who is allowed to see this incident, in addition to the owner of the incident. And in my system, I haven't limited it. I've allowed admins to still see everything in the system. So I have 3 rich clients open. This first one is my administrative user who has no restrictions set in our security. So I can see 43 open incidents in the system. Next, we have my HR user who has restrictions, but they're allowed to see any that are owned by themselves, and so they also see 43. Now the third one is my IT user. My IT user has restrictions where they can only see incidents where HR is not true or they've been given access via that accessible to tab down at the bottom of the incident. So we'll walk through a demonstration of showing this a little more clearly here in a few minutes, but I'm going to show you how we set this up. So the first thing we did, and I'm just going to go ahead and open my existing blueprint, is on the incident field or incident form object, we simply added a single field called HR restricted. Now that's a logical field and it's just a true or false. Don't forget to allow null so that if you have to bring a czar from one side to another, you won't run into an issue there. And that's all we did on the incident form and object itself. Now we also had to create our accessible to or available to object. Now this is a supporting object. It's a fairly simple object. You could do more elaborate things. And all we did was we added the available to's email address, their name, their rec ID, our parent record ID, our parent record type, and our parent record ID. Parent rec ID is 42 characters. Available to their rec ID is 42 characters. Everything else just I gave 60 for email and name. Now one thing I haven't done in my blueprint yet, I just used the form wizard. We really don't want to see some of this, but that's okay. But what I didn't do was I would really like to put a button right here that's going to be a show legal values button. So we'll throw that up there. We'll give it a size of 23 by 23. Close enough. And we'll just go ... for more. And I'm not going to worry about lining it up too perfectly or making a really nice form. Not the field, sorry. For that button, we just want to go to the control properties and we want to add a show legal values option on it. And that is associated to the available name. Makes it a little bit easier. In my demo system, the drop down's fine. But in a larger system where you have, I just noticed I was on the available email as far as alignment. So in a larger system, you're not going to want to use a drop down. You're going to have too many users potentially. So you just throw a search button there. Now, after we built this available to object, we then had to come build a relationship on incident. So on our incident, we added a relationship. And in this case, it's incident owns available tos. Let me find it here. It's a fairly simple relationship. It's a one-to-many, owns to many, available to is our child. In our links, we're just using the default link, storing the incident key in available to, and we're storing it in that parent rec ID field that we created on the availables. Now in our advanced, we're going to delete children with parent, just because we don't necessarily need the available to records to sit out there if we've deleted the incident for any reason. I'm a big proponent of not deleting if you can prevent it, archive things off, because you never know when a manager is going to come around in 6 months and say, hey, what about? And then you have to say, well, we've not got that data. So we're going to load the relationship immediately, and we're not going to load it when constraints are blank. Now, on our form arrangement, when I brought the relationship over, we just left the text alone. Obviously, you might want to change that, available to, available tos, whatever. I chose the unlock icon just because it kind of made sense to me that, hey, if you have access, then, you know, the record's unlocked to you. And then the visibility, I don't want to display that tab unless the incident HR restricted logical is set to true. Tab contents is just a basic, choose everything, but I did choose the grid and vertical split for the form that's displayed, and no filters. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this since I added the show legal values on the available tos form. So reload definitions on my admin, reload definitions on my HR. Alright, so all three should be reloaded now as soon as Mr. IT catches up. So again, my leftmost rich client is an admin with no restrictions. My middle one is the HR. The left is, or the far right is IT. Now there's one other piece of this. My users are in different teams. So my Beyond HR user is in the HR team. Not that relevant, but my Beyond IT user is in the IT Service Desk Level 1 Security Group and in the IT level, First Level Support team. Forgot to show the HR is in the HR Security Group. So now, in our security groups, we went to the HR Security Group, and you'll have to do this for every group in your system where you want to do restrictions. We went down to Incident, and right here we said limit records based on criteria. Now what that looks like is this for HR. So for an HR user, in this case we're going to let the HR users look at any incident in the system. So that first line, HR restricted is not equal to true, or HR restricted is equal to true and the owner is the current user. Now this is important because we may have different HR users who are looking at different incidents and they all have their own restrictions, and this will prevent HR user 1 from seeing incidents from HR user 2, HR user 3, etc. So you want to be careful with this and decide, do you want it to be when it's restricted only allowing the owner to see it, or do you want to make it the team that can see it, so then all HR members could see it? So something to just deal with there. And then finally, we have a related clause. There is at least one available to our supporting object child relationship where all of the following are true. The available to available name equals the current user display name. Now I took the cheap road out of this. We are populating the user's rec ID. So a better option to use here would actually be that the available rec ID equals the current user record ID. That way, you know, if you have two Larrys in the system, two Larry Martins in the system, two Joe Smiths, whatever, using that record ID is going to get the right one. Now, obviously, you've got to be careful with making that option when you're creating your available to relationship. You may want to base that off of email address rather than name. But for the demo, I'm just doing the quick, easy route to show you what we're looking at. You can expand upon that as you're doing it. Now, on our IT Service Desk Level 1 team, the limiter is a little bit different. In this case, it's just IT can see any incident where HR restricted is not true, or they are the available name is their current username. We don't need the additional owned by, because in this scenario, the IT person will never own an HR restricted ticket, at least in my mind, or in this demo. You can obviously add that additional step in there. HR restricted is true and owned by equals current user display name. But I elected for the demo to say that the IT person would never be the one to set an HR restricted ticket as true. So that's how we set all of this up. And our end result ends up being, if we come over here, owned by team is HR and HR restricted is true. So we have two incidents, 102.083 and 102.199, that are HR restricted. Now if we go over to our IT person and we search, we see 102.199, which is one of our HR restricteds, but we do not see 102.083. 102.083. No records found. Now, if we go back and look at our 102.199, if you remember, and this is IT again, so IT can actually see this HR restricted incident. It's owned by Beyond Tier 2 HR, and it's available to Beyond IT. So since we added Beyond IT here in this relationship, they can see it. If we come back over here, 102.083, which we've already seen they cannot see. If we go down here to the available tos, there is no one. So we just add a new available to. And this is what I was talking about. I just accepted the form wizard. Don't need to display these rec IDs and things of that nature. Forms obviously not organized, but if I select Beyond IT and I save the record, now 102.083 is going to become available to Beyond IT. So I'm using the drop down to show that's the record that I had tried to search for before that was not available. And now, that quickly, that new incident is available to us simply because we've been added down here into the child relationship. Anyhow, I hope you find this video useful. There's a lot of good information in here. Explore using your security, but be careful with it. And if you find yourself needing to secure certain pieces of your Cherwell environment from other areas, then here's one way to go about starting that process. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce these videos every week. If you have certain questions or comments about the videos, you can post them in the YouTube channel and we'll either respond with an email or we'll create a video showing you how to do what you've asked. Thank you.